Alright, welcome back again, friends, to another episode of Tactical Enlightenment. And today we're going to continue with our custom battle series, again focused on the Aserai. In the previous episode, volume number 9, I believe, maybe number 8, I get a little lost sometimes with the number. We had Aserai versus the Crusade. In this episode, we're basically going to have a compilation of different battles. We're going to have the Aserai versus Empire, we're going to have Aserai versus Batania starting us off, and then we're also going to have Aserai versus Sturgia. Sturgia, of course, represents a particularly difficult challenge from this tactic that I'm attempting, which is to use the Aserai Palace Guards in a very demonstrative way, a very potent way, by protecting them until battles really come to blow. So Sturgia, of course, is some of the best infantry in the game, and theoretically Batania represents a very difficult challenge as well with their very strong archers, the Batanian Fiends, and then of course their very potent infantry as well. So we're going to start off against Batania. I've gone through all the troop trees, selected all the units. I'll do this for all the different sides. I may not show you it for each battle just because it's tedious, but theoretically each side has access to an equal quality number of troops. With the exception of the total number of troops, you can see the enemy outnumbers us here by over 100 troops. So more than a 20%, almost a 25% advantage in total numbers. If you watched the previous Aserai series, this is going to be familiar. If you didn't, I'll just try to cover it quickly. We're going to have two different archer divisions, the 4th and 5th. Our 2nd is a cav division, and that'll be assigned the killing cavalry. What I mean by that is they'll be the offensive cavalry. The 1st infantry will be a defensive infantry, right? Minus the guys with axes, right? In other words, it's a strong infantry group without two-handed weapons. So most of those guys, or all of those guys, will have shields. Meanwhile, this is the, well, first I've got to set up the 6th, but the 3rd is basically the linchpin, the most important part of this strategy, and that is because I want an entire division, this 3rd division. I'm going to edit these little settings here with the plus sign until this unit becomes almost entirely made up of two-handed axemen. Look at those motherfuckers, with just all with executioner axes, and it's a very specialized group. They're highly vulnerable to archers, so we have to use them correctly, but as you shall see, if you use them correctly, they are utterly devastating in battle. Our primary strategy is going to be trying to form a square, either with the 1st or 6th, preferably with the 1st infantry because they're stronger. And then what we'll be doing is trying to surround the enemy as they attack that square and utterly vanquish them with our 3rd, this lethal group with two-handed axes. So I can see the enemy way across the field there. Again, we have the 4th and 5th set up as nice archer corps. It's not nearly as strong as Batania, but we should be able to at least hold our own at range over the course of a long battle. Of course, we would lose against Batania because they have more arrows, better troops. But what we're going to try to do is eliminate their vanguard with this powerful infantry assault, and then we'll be able to mop up their archers. So first I need a horse. This guy doesn't start with a horse. I wanted to run this guy because he's like the perfect companion for the Aserai campaign or an Aserai custom battle. So we're going to do a little carjacking here, a little horse jacking, steal this guy's horse, and then you tell all those horse archers to remount their troops, or remount their horses, and everybody except that last poor guy, everybody else gets a horse and he just chases after us. Poor fella, he's probably killed eventually. So we're going to set up our 1st infantry in a nice long defensive line here with the 7th Cav. I forgot to mention them. 7th Cav is our defensive Cav. I typically assign these guys very weak troops, but most of them at least have a shield, and they're kind of guarding that right flank. Meanwhile, on our left flank, we're going to use this little tiny elevated area here and put archers with a 6th and 1st division of infantry, or excuse me, just the 6th infantry there to protect the archers, and then eventually our 3rd infantry. Our 3rd infantry is, again, the linchpin of this whole strategy, is to get these guys into battle without them getting shot to pieces by arrows or killed by troops or whatever beforehand. So we've got horse archers just following behind me. We also have the 2nd Cav, which is a decent utilitarian a body of troops. Right? They've got javelins. It's your Aserai Ferris. It's actually their noble line. But in this battle, it's a good example about how you don't even need to use your noble line in great effect to destroy the enemy. Of course, they'll be beneficial. They'll help. They'll throw some javelins, and they'll do counter charges to the enemy cavalry. But this battle is going to show you that you don't need, a huge army consisting of Aserai Ferris to completely trounce the enemy. So closing in on the enemy here, we're moving the 1st and the 4th. That's holding down our center. And again, over on the far side there, that's the 7th Cavalry. That cavalry division has one job, and that's basically to deter enemy cavalry charges on that flank. Over here, we're just doing a little skirmishing. In fact, both sides here have javelins. Although I think they actually have their javelin division on the other side. But I just have those 2nd Cav over there, basically skirmishing, keeping their Cav from just being able to charge our archers. Now, our archers are in a much better position already than the enemy, because not only are they spread, but one of our units has height, has elevation, and so you can see the arrows raining over my head there. They're effectively shooting over the enemy's shield wall. I forgot to mention, too, I tucked the third infantry up here in the woods like they're a bunch of scared pansies, but the reality is that we're just protecting them from archery fire, protecting them from cav charges until the real damage, until the real brawl begins. So the enemy moving up, what we want is we want their vanguard to attack us, right? We're going to try to encourage them to attack, and if they won't attack directly, we will move up an infantry division, and right before it gets to them, we will form them into a square. Now, I'm tightening our lines a little bit here. They've got cavalry sort of threatening us over there, and I'm moving the 3rd down right next to me. So the 1st division is right there. That's our 1st infantry. We're going to move them into a square. That's our strongest non-axe infantry, right? So those guys are going to the square, and look at the enemy infantry is bearing down on them. So we're going to take advantage of that. We're going to flank here with the 6th. See me stretching the 6th out. That cavalry is probably going to charge us, but then I've got this 3rd infantry. They're kind of going the wrong way. I want my 3rd getting behind the 6th over here. What we're going to do basically is attack the enemy from the side. And this cavalry charge is probably going to occur. Yeah, here they come. That's okay, though. I've got enough infantry here to deal with this. And once these guys sort of pass through, then we can focus on the enemy vanguard. Right, a lot of times cavalry charges are short, plus we've got our guys on charge. Now we close the vice, right? I just moved up the 6th and the 3rd into battle there. And they're now wrapping around the enemy, sort of attacking on the flank. All of a sudden, the enemy has a bunch of axe-wielding savages just bearing down on them from the side. On top of that, I wasn't able to say, there's so much stuff going on, I can't narrate it all. I actually called this other cav division that was guarding the other side and pulled them towards us as well. What that's doing is basically wrapping the enemy in 3 different flanks, right? The front and both sides, there's enemies attacking it. And you can see the death spam, I think, speaks for itself. The enemy vanguard of 180 guys or whatever got liquidated. And these guys, I could call them cowards, but I would just say they're smart. They realize that their commander is of inferior intellect, and they're fucking out of here. And that, folks, was that. That actually was about the most swift annihilation I've had so far with the Aserai. I'm probably getting better at my craft. This is about the 5th time, 6th time maybe I've run a battle like this. I just started doing this tactic yesterday, and as you can see, it's devastatingly effective. If you time it right, if you know the field, if you understand the movement of the battlefield and troops, you can see we lost 114 and made 550 of theirs retreat. So now we're going to make a few changes here. Let's see. I wanted to do Sturgia. I think we'll do Sturgia for at least one battle, and then we'll also do some with either the Empire. No, I've already done Khazate, so we'll do with the Empire. So again, with Sturgia here, we're loading up all of their unit tiers, right? We're going to make sure that they have all their noble units, all the horse riders, and their, I don't know how to pronounce it, but their noble cavalry is actually very nasty. And again, you can see the numeric advantage. In fact, let's give them a little more. Let's give them 572. So now they have like almost a 30% advantage in numbers on us. We'll fight in the open field, so it's nice and easy to see. But I don't think their numerical advantage is going to allow them to win. We'll fight, again, in the Samantha Valley. It's a nice spot for you to be able to see the whole battlefield. Broad daylight. That way you can see all the tactics. Again, covering my units. The 8th is just horse archers. They don't have a tremendous role in my fight. You certainly could use horse archers to better effect, but with so few, I have 36. They're basically just skirmishing, pot-shotting guys from their horses. The 2nd Cav, that's an important division, right? That is our Aserai Ferris. That's our javelin throwers, and they'll be used to countercharge the enemy. The 1st is infantry without two-handed weapons, right? I want those guys to have spears. I want them to have javelins and shields because they'll be my shield wall. But this division I've already said it a couple times. I won't belabor the point too much, but this division is the most critical, right? I want these guys to look exactly like that, to have that two-handed axe waving in the air, ready to behead some Sturgians. Now, Sturgia has extremely tough infantry. In fact, if I had to rate the different kingdoms, I would say Sturgia has the best infantry, but we're going to try to counter that fact today with superior tactics. Just like the first battle, we're going to form a square either with our 1st or 6th infantry, depending on where they're attacking from, and then the other two infantry divisions will flank, and of course we'll send in the vicious 3rd Corps to really try to pancake the enemy. As before, we're going to simulate a little Grand Theft Auto here and do a little horse jacking, right? We're going to steal a horse. Told these guys to follow me. Your horse looks great, thanks. You can now fight on foot, and we're going to have our troops follow us. So Sturgia has typically weak archers, so we'll definitely have a ranged advantage in this battle. And so what we want to do early in this fight is actually initiate a ranged battle. We don't want to just pour in on them and initiate a battle. The longer our archers can pound them with arrows, the longer that phase of the battle goes, the better the other phases will go. Now, to counter that, of course, if you're playing Sturgia, you want to attack quickly, right? You know your archers are weak. You want to at least shield wall and absorb a lot of arrows, or you want to get in and fuck up the enemy before they just pound you with arrows. So just like before, it's a little redundant. I'm used to it over and over, so I'll try to explain it for those who aren't. It's the 1st infantry in the front. I've got the 7th Cap defending that flank over there, and then the 4th archers behind him. If you have the same strategy or a very similar strategy in most fights, and then the only thing you have to do is move tactically, it's way easier to run battles, folks. You don't want to have different unit setups every battle, because for sure your brain will be confused. You'll be pushing the wrong button. In this case, we have the identical setup as the last 3 battles. We're going to put the 5th archers on this flank over here to the right. We're going to try to get them up on this hill a little bit. I've got the 3rd infantry, that's our shock troops, pushed way to the back because I don't want them getting shot. And again, I've seen this from Sturgia. They have just an awful formation. They have their archers out in front. They're not even spread, and they're just getting absolutely plastered by our archers. But this is a threat over here. They have a huge, and I'm a little late here. I can move these guys back. They're in a shield wall over here with the 6th infantry, but these guys are nasty. This is their noble heavy cavalry, and I wasn't able to get my cavalry over here I'm going to have to do some kiting here. This was a mistake on my behalf. I'm attacking now with these 3rd guys. I didn't even want to use them at this stage of the battle, but we'll try to show you an improvised situation. The enemy's not always going to act exactly like you expect. In this case, they did the appropriate thing. They charged very aggressively. Meanwhile, their infantry's charging as well, so we're going to try to kite. If you're not familiar with it, kiting basically means moving all your units back. We're getting massacred. Moving all your units back quickly, trying to reestablish those lines and buy yourself a little bit of time. So I'm moving infantry back to 1st Infantry and the 4th Archers. We're pulling our 6th Infantry back here. My 3rd Infantry, which are my Palace Guards, they're now supporting the Archers, who are being just speared by these nasty noble troops. And I have my archers pulled higher up on this hill. Their infantry is just bearing down on us. We'll see if we can't recover this. So the 6th has a nice firm line there right below us. The 1st Infantry can now, I might get killed just trying to order my troops around. My 1st Infantry, I don't know which one I want to make into a square here. Either way, though, I got to protect this 3rd. So I'm going to use the 1st in a square. Oh, the enemy is just ignoring it. They're pouring right in. So this is about optimal strategy by the enemy. They're ignoring our shield. We're still going to try to succeed despite the enemy taking these maneuvers. So the 1st Infantry is in front, and we're just sending our 3rd in right behind. The other thing we can do is, since they're ignoring our square, is we can drag them towards me. You see them in the middle there in a mass of troops. They're getting speared from behind. We can have those guys sort of pinch the Sturgian troops from behind, and hopefully that combined attack of 3 different infantry groups on their vanguard, even though they're being speared and ran through, hopefully that's enough for them to have success. The only thing, my troops are routing. I don't film losses typically in custom battles, but if we lose this, I'm probably still going to keep this recording because we're still trying to do dynamic tactics. You're going to deal with difficult situations. The one positive I see at this stage, we're being kind of steamrolled, is my archer divisions are mostly intact. I still see deaths by my 6th and 1st, so my infantry is sort of fighting to the death,
And we're going to try to sort of pull this out by the narrowest margin. The cavalry represent a major threat, but these archers are a bigger threat. So I'm bringing my infantry down right into the face of these archers. Right? I've got a shield wall line in the front. I'm going to drag a handful of cavalry through here, and we're going to try puncturing their archer line with our infantry. Right? Their infantry is mostly routed. Well, now we're going to watch the AI. It's very close. I've got my archers spread out there. Unfortunately, I did drag my infantry down, so most of my orders, so to speak, were carried out. And unlike this battle, unlike some other battles where the AI does stupid things, now it's just sort of playing it out, and it's actually doing a decent job. In fact, it looks like victory is still inevitable here. Our archers are better positioned, and the enemy does look like they're routing. Yeah, see, I still have that 1st and 6th down there, foaming at the mouth, killing anybody that moves. There's not very many at this point. There's literally like 15, 20 hardy guys, but it's still enough for us to win. So despite this outstanding enemy sort of counter tactic, even outnumbered 130 men, we're still victorious. I think I'll run another episode here with Sturgia, just so we can have a little cleaner execution of this tactic. You don't need to see all my mistakes. I'll probably keep this one recorded just to show you, but let's do the exact same battle. We'll do it in a nice big open field, and hopefully I can show you again illustrate some of those same tactics with a little bit better timing. The timing of this, of course, is critical, right? If you send in your 3rd infantry too soon, you get shot to pieces by archers. If you send them in too late, your infantry divisions get surrounded and destroyed, right? So to win battles where you're outnumbered, you obviously have to execute at a very high level. You might be able to make a mistake or two, but if you make multiple mistakes, in a battle like this, you're probably toast. So again, I won't talk you to death. Most of this should be familiar. The 6th is kind of a weaker infantry line. The 7th is a shield cavalry. All the rest is like we've been setting up for these previous battles, right? The 4th and 5th are archer wings. The 3rd is our linchpin, right? That's our palace guards with their 2-handed axes. And our 1st infantry, which we'll try to square, they are tough infantry without axes, right? So your veteran Aserai infantry. Again, I'm zoomed in like this because I physically want to change around the characteristics of these different divisions to make sure that 3rd division that's right ahead of us, just like that. So that's the button I had to push. I had to tell those guys, hey, have javelins, have spears. Obviously, the palace guards don't have that, and so we're able to isolate them into the 3rd Corps. This guy has a banner that makes the troops faster. It looks like it's a 30% speed bonus, and that's highly valuable for an attacking group like these shock troops. If they slowly trudge into battle, they're going to get shot with arrows. It's going to be harder to move them in a way that I want. And so, of course, the effect of their speed, the effect of their damage is going to be obviously less effective. Oops, the horse archers are way over there. It's going to be less effective if they move slowly, right? Use those banners, whether it's your own or your captain's. You definitely want to use those banners. Give me your horse, dude. Thanks. Right, you can get them right back on their horse. So we've got more terrain to play with this battle. Terrain is really valuable. In this case, I can sit archers and the 6th infantry on this right flank, and I can put the 1st and 4th. Right, all of this should be pretty familiar to by this stage. These units are sort of married. 1st and 4th, 5th and 6th. So the infantry's protecting our archers, right, with a nice big shield wall. And then again, we'll send cavalry wings onto both flanks and basically try to prevent them from charging in, right? The reason they did so well last battle, even though ultimately we ended up winning, was their cavalry made a wonderful charge, just like they're doing, and I get myself killed on a tree here. Fuck. These noble lines right here are deadly, right? To prevent them, we've got our line of cavalry right here and shield wall, and they have one job, and that's to make their exactly what they just did. It's to make them turn away. Right, they don't want to face oppressive of horses, and so already mission 1 of the battle has succeeded. On the far side over there, the horses are kind of skirmishing. I've got archers skirmishing with their horses, and in the middle here, we're raining death already. Again, very inferior tactics. We should be able to utterly waste this force, given that we have a little bit of elevation here, and their archers are in front. This is exceptionally bad tactics by the AI. But we'll still go with it to try to show you the execution of this tactic. All right, so the enemy infantry is coming close. Again, we're going to pull them back a little bit. This is our infantry line. And now we're going to square them up. Right? We want the enemy to engage this square. You see those guys tightening up there on the left. You can do a little slow-mo. So the 3rd is following me. The other division is, again, kind of squeezing the enemy in. Again, they're charging. So it's another wonderful combined attack here by the AI. For all the stupid things they do some brilliantly timed stuff too. But it's not going to matter because now our infantry square, right, is being enveloped by the enemy, but that's what we want. On the far side over there, we have the 6th Infantry collapsing on the enemy. And I'm also going to keep these archers occupied by sending that weak cavalry line. Remember I told you that weak cavalry, the 7th. I'm going to send them basically right in the face of the enemy to sort of stick shields up in their face, eliminate a lot of the arrows that are making it to my troops. That way we can focus on destroying this very strong Sturgian infantry. So the palace guards are on the flank that I'm on right now. You can kind of see them in there. And of course you can see the death spam, right? They're killing lots of troops. And if you look at that Sturgian infantry right there, if you look at their division, it's enveloped. It's attacked on 2, maybe even 3 sides, and the results are predictable. They're out of here. They've had enough. A lot of their friends got beheaded. A very bad result for Sturgia here. And if this strategy works this successfully against Sturgia, then you can be assured it's going to work for you in your game, and it will probably work against any kingdom that presents infantry as like a vanguard like that. Eventually, I'll try this against Valandia. We've already smoked the Khazaits in the previous episode, but as you can see, this attack, this 3 infantry attack in particular, where the palace guards come in sort of last, and just the death throw of the enemy is highly effective. Like 262 guys are still left, and we made, 570 troops either prisoner or dead or injured on the field, right? It's a massacre. All right, we're back for one more battle. This time we'll do the Empire. Very similar setup, right? We'll give them almost 100 more troops than us. We'll fight on the same battlefield as before. Not the valleyed area. The plain, which gives a lot less advantage to elevation. And then again, we've clicked all the troop trees so that they have all the different access to troop trees. Right, both sides has some scrubs, but both sides also has Medavliatons and Legionnaires, so to speak. Right, I think things are even from that side of things. Right, they have the one mercenary line, and we have one mercenary line as well. Ours is like a kind of a worthless cavalry, but we'll nevertheless try to succeed with that. So at this stage, I'm not even going to explain all the different formations. By now, you're familiar with it, right? Again, our strategy is to fight the enemy at range initially, and then if and when the enemy presents their vanguard, and by vanguard, if you don't know what that means by now, that's their main strength of infantry. When they present that to us, we're going to surround and destroy it with our 3 different infantry lines. I've tinkered a little bit with this. I can mention this point. The 2 different infantry divisions, you can square up with either of them because they're both shield heavy. Since the 3rd division has no shields, all the other infantry have shields, right? Almost all of them anyways. So what you can actually do is you can square up with both, but I've actually found a lot more success squaring up with the stronger infantry division. And the reason is because they can survive the onslaught way better. If you have weak infantry in a square, the enemy can still puncture them. Some of those guys have weak shields or weak armor, right? They're wearing bathrobes. And if they get killed and your shield dissolves, then this strategy is much less effective. So I've actually found with this tactic I'm performing here that I like my 1st infantry to look just like this. There's some elite troops in there, right? The highest level, I think it's called a Aserai veteran infantry. They have good armor. They have pretty good weapon skill, pretty good armor loadout, stuff like that. But most importantly is when they form a square, that square will have survivability. Now the 6th, there's some guys with skirmishers in there, but the 6th is almost like a reserve infantry unit. It has your weaker troops, has some of your guys wearing the weakest armor, right? It's the opposite of the 1st, right? It's if you have 1 strong and 1 weak. But because we're using it almost exclusively to screen for our 3rd, you can think of them almost as like sacrificial bodyguards, right? They go into battle, and it doesn't really matter how well they kill. They're going to be attacking people that hopefully are attacking our 1st infantry in the square. The key to it, though, is that they're preventing the enemy from pounding your 3rd division with arrows, right? They're effectively a meat shield for this 3rd division. You see them behind there. That's kind of how we're going to go into battle, right? I'm going to run a square with the 6th, and then directly behind them, this angry 3rd Corps. Also, I think that tactically, this type of a battle shows the benefit of understanding your troops, your troop loadout, and then being able to select on the individual troop tiers, right? Your 1st army group, 2nd group, etc. Different units, right? I see a lot of people who just use 3 or 4 units in Bannerlord, and that is fine. You're just not going to be able to do this type of tactical wizardry that we're pulling off in these videos. And therefore, I need a horse again. Get off, boys. So therefore, you're not also going to be able to win these lopsided battles that we're winning, right? We're fighting 130, 100 plus guys every battle, and most of the time like 130 or 104 and more enemies. And this battle, it's about 100. You don't win that battle a lot of the times unless you do some advanced tactics. And you're certainly not winning battles where you're outnumbered very significantly, outnumbered by 200. If you watch some of the videos that are part of my campaign, we're winning battles where we're outnumbered 3 to 1, and we just wade through the enemy. We use advanced tactics and just mangle them. Right? You can't do that if you have 4 divisions or 3 divisions. It's not happening. So it feels a little deja vu to the Sturgia battle I fought earlier today. It's probably the second part of this video. Right, we're in the same, almost the same exact setting of the same map. This time again, we're focused on their horse archers. Right, we're trying to eliminate how much of these guys are sort of pinpricking us with archers. The rest of the units I've moved up in the familiar pattern. Right, 1st guarding the 4th, 1st infantry right in front of us there, 4th archers behind them, and then on the far side over there. And again, I see cavalry charging them early on, but we have that cavalry wave protecting. Yeah, see, heavy cav got largely stopped on our cav there. I've got my 5th archers over on that side with the 6th skirmishers sort of protecting them. They also sent in their weaker cav division to this side, which is obviously it's not going to be nearly as effective if their strongest cav had charged us. Man, I'm bad at javelins. So you see their cavalry sort of, infatuated with our cav line here. It's like these guys want to increase their kill ratio or something like that instead of actually trying to help their team win the battle. I mean, they definitely did a number there on my infantry line, but that's totally fine. Our archers are hammering people. Again, I told you, that's kind of the point of that cav division. I see they're down to 1 guy. That's fine. I promise you, as in the game of chess, we just took like 2 rooks at the cost of 2 pawns, right? That was a highly efficient / successful exchange. We'll take that all day. So on the far side over there, I've just got my archers attacking their cav archers. Archers and cav archers. Their infantry vanguard is coming in. It's 203 guys. This time I've identified early on how many it is. I can't position my troops here. Sometimes when the enemy is sort of back in your territory, this new game mechanic where you can target the enemy specifically, like have a unit attack specifically, the guys are back there and they're in your way, and so the system physically won't let you position troops. It can be pretty aggravating, but to get around that, all I did is just pull these troops back. I don't want my archers attacking cavalry at this stage, right? We're gonna continue to execute our tactic here. So we're doing a little kiting. By the way, you can kite basically any time in any battle as long as you don't have a huge cavalry disadvantage. If they have a massive amount of cavalry and you try to kite, well, all you're doing is running away and getting steamrolled by cavalry. So the 1st infantry is kind of far away. I'm going to try to get them closer. They're kind of moving diagonally. The enemy's sort of charging the infantry line in the flank that we don't want them charging, but we're still going to be able to make this work. So I got horse archers here now. See what I'm going to do here. We're going to continue to move those troops back. I've got these guys coming out. I really want them to be the sacrificial square, but we may have to use the 6th just because of how the enemy's pursuing. So my 3rd is nice and protected. All right, so finally the enemy's close enough to my square that I think they'll take the bait. I just formed them into a square. We continue to pull troops back, right? We're kiting. I've got the 6th and my elite 3rd right in front of me here. The enemy's kind of in between us. You can see the mass of their troops are sort of tucked in there. Their horse archers are over here kind of complicating things. But now I can start dragging my infantry lines. Let me block these cavalry charges. See, that, okay, their infantry's taking the bait. Our 3rd comes over towards me, right? They're on follow me. Now I send in the 2 other infantry divisions. I want to pin the infantry, and meanwhile we charge with the 3rd. You see these guys foaming at the mouth. And what do they see? They see an enemy that's faced the other way attacking our divisions, our 1st and this square that the enemy finally sort of bait-balled onto. Right? So now my 3rd is just wading through their infantry. You know, the enemy's pulling away from the 1st. So here, this is where it's checkmate. I just broke them up into line and told them to charge. So what happens if they ignore our square? Now our 1st infantry, which is full of tough troops, they just collapsed on the enemy, and the enemy's basically sandwiched in between violent infantry divisions, right? The enemy is like firmly in the middle of that massacring body of troops, right? It's an utterly destructive situation. Briefly, I had my archers charge there just because they were so close. Anybody with a sword, I wanted them to use their swords. But now we'll start to advance on their other troops here. We spread our archers on this wide right flank. You can see the death spam too. It's a massacre. And what I've done is I've pulled the 6th Division. That's our weakest infantry line with, you know, most of them have shields. I've pulled them out towards the enemy archers in shield wall. Right? You can see the death spam. Part of the reason those guys are so successful at destroying the enemy vanguard there is they're not getting shot with 150 arrows and bolts, right? I've got infantry now absorbing a lot of those blows. So we'll play this out to the last thread, but this battle's obviously over. We can get a little bit more deluxe here at the end. We're going to move our cavalry wings out onto the flank of the enemy. You would do this in real life if you wanted to make sure that none of these troops made it home. Maybe you would leave one of them just to tell you know, their king or commander or whatever about the terror that they just faced, right? You'd leave like one survivor to go in and be like, we should become vassals. We just got dominated. All of my friends got beheaded. I would recommend peace at whatever cost, right? So now the enemy alone, just from our cav charging in there at the end, they've had enough. They're routing. Again, let's spread the legend of this this Aserai flank attack so that they can tell their they can tell the rest of their Imperials that resistance is futile. Well, hopefully you enjoyed this series, this compilation of different videos with the Aserai. Please leave comments, even if they're, you know, critiques on things I could have done better or things that you're trying out. Please subscribe. Leave comments, all that good stuff. I appreciate you guys a lot, and I'll see you fellas next time.